us for our District 29 community meeting. We're here today to discuss some potential rezonings. I see some familiar faces on the line, so I know some of you all are familiar with this, but there are some new faces on as well. So as we've previously discussed, during the period of quarantine or since March, I've had several people to reach out with questions about rezonings and potential proposals for rezonings. However, before I do any type of rezoning, I always have community meetings so that we can get community input and so that the community can learn about these projects and the pros and cons of the project, and we can just make a decision on what we want to see to make sure that it's a very participatory process. During the time of quarantine, since we were not meeting in person, I really held off on having these meetings and these discussions as my priority was more so making sure that the needs of our community was being met. So now that we are coming on the other side, we are starting to have some community meetings to have conversations about potential rezonings and giving people the opportunity to present to the community about the projects that they are hoping to have. So thank you all so much for joining today so that we can hear about those projects. As always, if this is your first time attending, these are just proposals. So, this is what the person is asking to do. Community members, you all have the opportunity to give feedback here on this call. You also have the opportunity to call me or email me directly to share any feedback, questions, or concerns that you may have about any of these proposals. And if anything does move forward, if there's any rezoning that does move forward, you have the opportunity to speak before both the Planning Commission as well as a second reading at a council meeting. So again, none of these are done deals. These are simply proposals to get the information in front of you so that we can get community feedback. So the first presentation we have today is actually going to be Ms. Hodge from Trustee Erica Gilmore's office, and she's going to briefly tell us about the tax relief tax freeze program. So Ms. Hodge, you are recognized. And you are on mute, Ms. Hodge, so we can't hear you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. And thank you so much, Councilwoman Porterfield, for inviting me this evening. I know that everyone's time is limited, and I just appreciate you extending the time to me. I am Delishia Hodge from the Metropolitan Trustee's Office. Our new trustee is the Honorable Erica S. Gilmore. And I am here to advise anyone that even if you don't qualify for this program, please share as often as you can. And I'd like to capture everyone's email after so that I can send you other resources that may not be available just in your zip code, but you may know someone or a church member or a dear friend that you'd like to share this information with. The tax relief program basically covers disabled veterans, seniors, and spouses of deceased homeowners who were previously on the program. In order to qualify as a disabled veteran, they must have a service-connected disability, and they must be 100% total and permanent disabled, and that would be rated by Social Security. And they must have been honorably discharged and must have been disabled by December 31st of last year, which is 2020. The property tax relief program for disabled veterans does extend to spouses. If you know someone who was a veteran and on the program, their spouse is still able to qualify for that program. There is no income requirement for disabled veterans. For seniors, the income requirement or their income cannot exceed $30,700. There is an application that I would like to share, and I'll try to share that with everyone in a moment. And with that application, they must provide a driver's license, they must live on the property, Their name must be on the deed, and they must have proof of residence with an annual income less than $30,700. The tax freeze program, the income guidelines are a little different. The limit is $43,810. And that must be the combined income. Each of these incomes would be anyone who's on the deed. So if you have a mother and son, they must together meet the income requirements. The same documents are required for the tax freeze and tax relief program, other than the military requirements. So if you have your proof of residence, your income, and that can be your 2019 tax return, or your Social Security statement, your Medicare card, or your driver's license is all we need. I know I met with another group from your district, and with another meeting for Councilwoman Porterfield, and we had discussed me coming into the community on this Friday between the hours of 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. to collect these applications and required documents imperfect in an effort to still serve people within their community. And I will be at the Smith Springs Community Center. Did I say that right, Councilwoman Porterfield?
Yes, ma'am. Smith
Oh,
Springs Community Center, located at 2801 Smith Springs Road.
I will be there this Friday, February 12th, between the hours of 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. I'd also like to tell you, as you know, property taxes are due at the end of this month, February 28th. And we will be taking payments at satellite offices on Saturday, February 20th and Saturday, February 27th at the North Precinct, the Hermitage Precinct, and the South Precinct between the hours of 9 and 1. If you'd like to come into those satellite offices to avoid long lines if you intend on paying in person. Our main office will be open, on February 22nd through the 26th. Our main office will be open between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., which are extended hours for us. We typically close at 4:30. And that will be for that full last week of February. And we will still be open all day, 8 to 4:30, but we're extending the time until 6. I just want to remind you that the deadline for the tax relief program is April 5th, and that taxes are due February 28th. I think it's important to know, I'd just like to give Council Member Porterfield a shout out because Metro gives 3 times the amount that the state contributes towards this program. And that is the highest contribution in the state. So that is what your council members have negotiated for you. And I think you should definitely appreciate that. And I'd like to go on record saying thank you, Councilwoman, for that. And I am available for questions. Our office is currently closed for the evening, but I'd like to share my telephone number with you. It's area code 615-862-6330 for you to share, for you to contact me directly if you need anything, and for you to share if you know someone who may qualify for one of these programs. And I think I have covered everything. If you have any questions, please contact me. My email is tashia.hodge@nashville.gov. Again, tashia.hodge@nashville.gov, and we can be reached at 615-862-6330. Thank you very much.
Ms. Hodge, thank you so much for that information. And the session that we had last Friday was very helpful. We got a lot of good feedback from senior citizens who attended that session, and individuals who said that they were sharing that information with their neighbors. So thank you all so much for being committed to getting this word out to our community. I did go ahead and put your phone number and email address inside the chat. So if anyone missed Ms. Hodge's information, it is located inside the chat. And again, this meeting is being recorded, so it will be shared out both on Facebook and through the newsletter. So if anyone did miss it, they'll be able to get it that way as well. So with that, thank you, Ms. Hodge. We'll now go over to our next presenter. Matthew, if you could please make John Coleman the presenter. The next presentation we have is a proposal. It's requesting a rezoning at 3156 Anderson Road to an SP zoning with 22 single-family detached homes. So, Mr. Coleman, we're going to make you a presenter so that you can share your proposal with the community.
Okay. John, you should be the presenter now. If you just want to push the share button, you should be able to share your screen or your PDF or PowerPoint presentation.
Hey, can you guys hear me? This is Adam Sager. Can y'all hear me, Matthew?
I can hear you, Adam. I haven't heard from John.
Okay. So I know John is on the call, but I'm the civil engineer for the project representing John. Would it be okay if I were made the presenter so I could put
You're the presenter now.
Perfect. Okay, and then let's go to, here's the map. Can you all see the map okay?
We can, yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield and everyone on the call. Again, this is Adam Sager. I'm with Dale & Associates. We're a civil engineering company, land planning company here in Nashville. Been around for many years. And we have been hired by John Coleman, who owns this property, and he's done several projects in the area. John has been in this area for quite a while, and we've actually worked on this project for several years now. I think that shows a commitment to him being invested in this area. And what I've pulled up for you on the screen is highlighted in red is where the property is. I don't know how well everybody can see it on their screen, but Anderson Road runs east to west, and it's right before you get to that 90-degree bend in Anderson when it heads north. And so that's where we are. And I'm going to pull up a few more images too as we go along. This project, like I said, has been around for a couple of years. We had a couple community meetings in the past, and just with everything going on, it kind of got quiet for a while, and now we're bringing it back up before y'all again. And let's see here. I know there's a way I can, there we go, make it look like a slideshow. It's at 3156 Anderson Road, and I might toggle back and forth here real quick, and I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time. But the property itself is almost 5 acres. It's about 4.9 acres. The existing zoning is AR2A, and in Metro, obviously we're now a larger city and there's not a whole lot of crops and fields around. And so AR2A is an agricultural zoning by definition, but really it just means it's a non-zoned property when you think about development. It's just kind of a holding place until something happens on the property, and then the property gets rezoned to a certain zoning, and then it'll likely get developed. The other thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing a zone change is what the policy is. And so the underlying zone or land use policy of this area is what's called neighborhood maintenance. And so as you look around the neighborhood, we're not going to be putting up, apartments or sky rises or Walmart or anything crazy like that. We're maintaining a residential character just like what's all around us. And we're proposing what's called an SP zoning. SP is a unique zoning that allows you to do a few things, and it is also heavily vetted through many different people at Metro, including Metro Planning, all the departments at Metro, Stormwater, Public Works, It goes to planning commission and gets heard at planning commission at public hearing, and then it goes to council and 3 readings at council, and everybody kind of weighs in, and hopefully we arrive at a unique zoning that works for everybody. So it's a much more intensive process. The proposed density we're doing at 22 units over 4.9 acres is about 4.48 units per acre, and the surrounding density around us is about 4.36 acres units per acre. And here's what we're proposing. To the right of us is a subdivision in what's called an R10 zoning, and that basically means you have 10,000 square foot lots. And all around us is really R10 zoning. And so we wanted to kind of mimic the density and the character of the area, but also provide our own unique touch on it and hopefully create a special place. The reason why we're doing SP is because it allows us to create these private drives with these open space areas. It allows us to do some things that a standard subdivision wouldn't. To put this in context, because I know some people may have a question, well, why don't you just do it like all the other folks around and just do a subdivision? And we could do that, but it doesn't really lend itself very well to this property because of the shape and what we're trying to accomplish. If we were to do a straight zone subdivision under R10 and you took 4.9 acres and you multiply that out, that's about 213,000 square feet, and you divide by 10,000 square feet per lot, that's about 21 lots. We'll just round it down to 20. So if we were to do a straight zone subdivision, I know everybody can't follow all that math real quick, but it would be about 20 lots. And in an R zoning, we're allowed to do 25% of those to be duplex eligible. So we're allowed on paper about 24 to 25 units, residential units. Again, we're not here to pack it in like sardines. We want to create kind of a special little development here, and that's why we're landing on 22 units and giving a good amount of space between it. As you look at Anderson Road, when you drive past, we're setting the houses off of Anderson Road a little bit further back, and we're spacing those out. You can see units 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then also rounding onto Alicia Lane here, 6, 7, and 8. Those will be slightly larger and spaced out more, spaced out even more than what's already there to give it kind of a good feel from the outside, and the fronts of these houses will be facing the public road. Then what we can do in these SPs is you come into a private drive. It's not owned or maintained by Metro. It's by the HOA. And you're driving in and you're looking at this little kind of courtyard area. This could be, community garden. It could just be a large grass area, a place to throw a football, whatever. But it creates a nice little space for the residents of this community, for everybody to front on it. Now, all of these internal units right here, they have their front doors facing this courtyard. And then this would be a private drive that goes around that would have rear loaded garages. And so everybody is facing a public road, or they're facing some open space or a courtyard area. Now, as requested by Metro Planning when we first submitted, there's a little public road stub out called Laura Lee Lane up here. And we've been asked to carry that on to the next property line. So that's something that Metro specifically asked of us. This roundabout is a Public Works standard roundabout. That's for to meet the fire codes, that any emergency vehicles can still have an access and turn around and get out. If anybody's on the call that lives right next to Laura Lee Lane or right next to this project, what that does mean is that this existing cul-de-sac right here in asphalt will get whittled down to a normal street. And so that was a temporary cul-de-sac. That'll get narrowed down, the asphalt removed and replanted in grass, and then the street will just go on through a little bit further. And so that's a quick explanation of what you're seeing on your screen and the context of the development. I got a few character images. This is just a character rendering of what the houses could look like. And then also to give some people a sense of scale and place, what it can look like on these courtyard areas. So as you enter in, you're going to see a courtyard with the houses fronting onto a sidewalk and a grass area. And many developments around town are incorporating these types of environments. And it's been quite successful. I think most of the people that live in those places like it a lot. But that's a quick run through of it all. And Councilmember Porterfield, I don't know how your standard format is for your meetings here. I'm here to answer any questions. I know John Coleman, as the owner of the property, is also on the line. We can answer questions. I don't know if this is presentation only or where you wanted us to go from here, but that was kind of about the quickest rundown I could do to try to cover it all.
Thank you so much for the information. I have a few initial questions that I have for you, and then we'll open it up if anyone else on the call has any questions or comments. My first question, when you went to the possible rendering on slide 4, have you all had any conversation about with your meeting with planning around the materials? You know, are you all looking at hardy board? Are you looking at brick? Or has there been any conversation about that?
Yeah, great question. As is typical with a lot of the SPs, it's one of the advantages from a community standpoint is that you can dictate the materials and the aesthetics of this to a certain degree. And we have committed to do no vinyl siding, no untreated wood. All of the porches would be at least a minimum of 6 feet deep because we don't want like a faux porch looking structure on the front of these. They're going to be real porches. A minimum glazing requirement, so you have you're not going to be looking at a solid wall of anything. There'll be windows and doors and dormers. And material-wise, they'll probably be hardy board, maybe a masonry product. We always say masonry because that could be stone or brick, and usually some metal roof accents and things like that. And what other items? Oh, we'll have raised foundations, so they're not going to be slab on grade. And I think that covers several items because what the SP does will kind of set some parameters and boundaries for the aesthetics so that to ensure it gets a good product.
Thank you. And then my next question is, are you all looking at an HOA? Some concerns that have come up have been around short-term rentals. So have you all looked at proposing any type of like HOA or putting it so that these properties cannot be used as short-term rental properties?
Sure. I'll defer to John on the final answer on that, but HOAs are set up in communities for these. The 22 homeowners that would come in here would be part of an HOA that owns and maintains everything. And in that, there would be the deed restrictions on whether or not you could do short-term rentals. Now, you know, that's been a big topic of conversation over the last several years in Metro. And I don't want to, again, speak for John, but I can tell you that, you know, in this type of zoning and in this type of area, it's not likely. But I don't know. John, are you on the call? Can you go ahead and commit to that? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't know if he's able to. Maybe he's having trouble coming
John,
in.
are you able to unmute?
He's showing as unmuted on my end.
Did you possibly mute your phone? Or I'm not sure if you're on your phone or on your computer. Okay, if you are unable to speak, Mr. Coleman, if you're on your computer, you can just enter your response in the chat, or you can maybe try to disconnect and reconnect, or you can send a text message and I will make sure to share that information. So that's one question that we have. Can you also speak to, do you know what the price point for these units would be? Adam,
yeah,
do
this
you
is
have that?
Adam. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be market rate. You know, this is what we're proposing is hopefully is going to be a pretty nice product. And I don't know, I'm not the marketing real estate guy to answer that question. I wish John was able to call in because I'm sure he could be able to answer that question pretty quickly.
It looks like John's active in the chat, and he stated there would be no STRs, so maybe you can answer the price point question.
Thank you. And the realtor also said that the property will not be able to be used for short-term rentals. What is the size of the units? Do you all have like a proposed square footage? I know you said the outside ones would be larger than the interior ones. Okay, so no STR, HOA, and the price point will be $300,000. Can you share with us the square footage for those outside units, as well as the square footage for the inside units? Okay, 1,500 square feet and 1,800 square feet. Thank you. And then I'll propose my last question here, and then we'll open it up to see if anyone from the community has any questions. My last questions are around the private streets. I know that this came up when you all had the community meetings before, and it was my understanding that there were some community concerns about these streets being private. I know that there have been some other developments in our community that have had the private streets to be maintained by the HOA, but in the event that the HOA is not properly funded, 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, it would then be upon those residents to keep up with the paving of the streets, and that could be, detrimental if the community does not have the funding, because private streets are not paved by Metro. They're not kept by Metro. So can you speak to the private street, the decision on why you all are requesting to do this as private streets, and are you able to do it as public streets if that is a request of the community?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's interesting. We get both sides of the coin depending on where we are and how you're viewing it. A lot of times we'll get comments on projects where people want them to be private because they don't want to be using taxpayer dollars to fund somebody else's driveway type of scenario, and vice versa. The concerns arise about HOAs, may not do as well, and then maybe they don't have as much funds to update their roads. I'll just want to make sure everybody keeps in mind that these are acting as sort of like people's private driveways. Just like everybody that lives along a public road, you have your own driveway to keep up, and if there's a pothole in it or something like that, that's for you to replace and to fix. And if it's a successful development, historically it shows that they're going to take care of their own driveways and their pavement, and they'll keep it up. So as long as these units are being lived in, there will be an HOA fee, and that HOA gets set up with parameters that say, hey, this much of your fee goes to maintenance, this much of your fee goes to landscaping, and hopefully it ensures an even better scenario where all of their fees are being used for maintenance purposes. So there are going to be maybe some horror stories that people have throughout the years on public streets, private streets, and I'm sure Public Works gets calls on all kinds of stuff, but if it's a successful development and people are living in these units, then history shows that it's usually a pretty well taken care of place. And the other thing that we did when we submitted last time is we committed to taking this pavement area, the main driveway area, and installing all the pavement to the same section, the same asphalt section as what a metro road would be. And so from day one, it's going to get a more heavier duty kind of base pavement section that isn't otherwise required by most developments. And so right off the bat, hopefully we start off on a good foot and have a good solid road in there, and it needs very little maintenance for the next 20 to 50 years.
Great. And if I can just jump in real quick on the question about if these could be public. Based on the design and the width of them, Public Works would not be able to accept them. if you look at Alicia Lane next door at the 50-foot right-of-way width next to this development, that's the standard width for a residential street that's public. And so with the sidewalks on either side. So if you look at that and then look at the internal driveways to this development, it doesn't really match. And so you'd end up losing some space and losing a lot of the units if you did it that way. And so,
Yeah, that's
and the use as a horizontal property regime, there's really no way, as it's currently proposed, that those could be public streets.
that's correct, Matthew. And to kind of piggyback on that, as it's currently designed, it would not be able to be public streets at all. It would be a complete different looking type of development. One of the trade-offs we believe is a positive is that rather than have wide roads and a lot of asphalt going through a property like this, our trade-off is to hopefully have smaller drives and more green space. And so there's less impervious surface in this development than if there was a public road going through it. So we think that's an improvement, but
yeah. And I guess just to jump in real quick and to clarify, Laurel Lee Lane will be public. That extension will be a public right-of-way, correct?
Yeah, Laurel Lee Lane is a public right-of-way, and you can get a sense of how much it's up there in white, the cul-de-sac. So you can start to get a sense on how big that needs to be as a public road versus, you know, some of the internal drives that are narrower and smaller.
Okay, thank you for sharing that information. And I am now opening the floor up. If there are any neighbors on the call that would like to share your thoughts, give any feedback, or ask any questions, if you could open your, raise your hand, then I will call on you so you can share your thoughts. And I'm going through, I do not see anyone that has raised their hand. I know that we do have a few callers on the line. Matthew, will you help just to unmute those? I think it's just 3 callers. If you don't mind, will you unmute them for a moment to see if they would like to speak on this?
I'll try. The way that the software has changed is it doesn't let me actually unmute them. I can only request them to unmute themselves. I've never actually called in, so I don't know how to unmute if you called in. I apologize.
No worries. I've called into one before, so it will give them the option and it'll tell them what button to push. So if you send them a request to unmute, then they'll hear that we're asking them to unmute, and then it will tell them what button to push. And if you are calling in and you don't want to speak, then please don't feel pressure to unmute. But we just want to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity if they're interested. And going through, it looks like we don't have any additional questions. So to our neighbors, if you have any feedback, I would love to hear any feedback, whether that's in support or opposition to this project. I would love to hear from you all so that we can determine as a community how we want to move forward on this particular project. So with that, Adam, thank you so much for presenting, and thank you to the Colemans for sharing your presentation with us as well.
Yes, thank you all so much. Just let us know if you have any questions. We'd be happy to help out. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. The next proposal that we have, if you could please make the presenter Michael Garrigan. The next proposal is for 3621 Butler Road, and there's a request to rezone that property into 4 R10 lots to put 2 homes on each lot for a total of 8 houses.
Michael, you're the presenter now. If you'd like to go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. I don't have, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I don't have any slides or presentations like Mr. Sager did. So I'll just keep the screen blank and walk through what we're proposing. My name is Michael Garrigan. I'm a civil engineer with Dell & Associates. Mr. Mina is also on the line. He's the property owner and will be requesting this rezoning. Essentially, what we're requesting is a base zone change. It's not an SP, similar to the last project, but it's a base zone change to match what's around it. What's immediately adjacent to it on Butler is R10 property, and that's what we're requesting. The initial request stated 4 lots. I've talked to my client since then, and that's not going to fit. That's not going to work. So it's only going to be 3 lots. But
Hey, Michael,
they'll have to be.
I'm sorry, real quick. What's the address? I'm going to pull up the map.
Okay, it's 3621 Butler Road. Thank you for doing that, Matthew. But it's about an acre, and it's surrounded by quarter-acre lots. It'll have to match their comparability when we come in. This is step 1 to get the zoning to match what's around it. Step 2 would be the final plat to match the lots that are surrounding it. But they'll have to meet what's called lot comparability. Everything will look. You can see it's much larger than any parcel to its north or south side of it. It'll ultimately the end goal is to split it into 3 lots that matches all the surroundings. With anything in Metro, vinyl siding will be prohibited, so it'll be a hardy brick and stone materials. I do not believe STRs are in the stars for this one, so we're happy to restrict that as well. I know that's a hot button item that could be restricted. You can actually restrict it. I believe you could do what's called an NS zoning, where instead of just doing R10, it could be R10-NS, and that stands for no short-term rentals. So we would be open to doing that as well. So that's really all I have.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to jump in. The NS districts don't apply to R, but you can't do non-owner occupied short-term rentals in R districts anyway. So it's only owner occupied.
Okay.
A little different.
So it's already okay.
Already banned.
So there won't be any short-term rentals. Good. But that was pretty much my presentation. Since it's not an SP, we don't really have any detailed plans or anything like that at the moment. Since it's just a base zoning being requested to match what's around it. It's pretty straightforward, and happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you for that information. So right now, the proposal is not to actually build any additional homes. You're just wanting the rezoning to be able to build in the future?
In the future, yes, ma'am. There'll be a plat that will have to be recorded and submitted to the planning department, and another meeting for it to create the 3 lots before any building permits can be issued.
Okay, so you want to change the zoning so that in the future you can subdivide the property into multiple lots?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for
multiple lots that match the surrounding lots.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So just for the purpose of our community, and Ms. Johnson, I did see your request, so we'll make sure to acknowledge you. For the purpose of the rest of the community that may be tuning in right now, when they subdivide property, and Matthew, you can speak a little bit better to this, but when they subdivide property, there are state guidelines, and if the property meets the state guidelines, then the property is able to be subdivided. So that is something that is a procedural process that goes through the planning department. The community and the council members don't have say on subdividing the property. What we would have input on is on the rezoning portion of it. And Matthew, if you could just speak to that.
Yeah, so the subdivision process is a little different. There is a public hearing at the Planning Commission. However, like Councilman Porterfield said, if it meets the city's adopted subdivision regulations per state law, they need the subdivision has to be approved. And so a lot of the debate is whether or not it will or won't meet those regulations. And without seeing a plat, I can't really speak to that. But the rezoning is where you actually change the allowance and say, hey, we do want to see a little more, like we want to see a few more lots that match our the neighboring lots here, or hey, we want to we don't think this fits our neighborhood. That's really when the community and the council member gets a say over the direction of the property. And once those entitlements are assigned to the property through the zoning change, so in this case going from AR2A to R10, once those entitlements have been granted by the council through the rezoning, then it becomes more of a procedural process where there's set procedures and set guidelines. And if they meet those, then it really has to be approved per the state law.
Thank you, Matthew. And then I just have a few more things, and then we did have someone who wanted to speak. I'm having a little trouble with this one. It's hard to determine whether you support or don't support when you don't really know what you're looking at, right? So in this case, we don't know, what the materials may be. We don't know sizes. We don't know price points. We don't have any of that information to make an informed decision because it's just a rezoning, and it's not a rezoning that, that you all are looking to actually build on. So I know I don't, my questions aren't really answered right now because I don't think you all have that information.
Mhm.
So, that may be something that will require further conversation and further community engagement. And we do have our Register of Deeds on with us, our former council member, Councilwoman Karen Johnson, who wanted to speak. And we also had another community member who is sharing concerns in the chat as well. So Ms. Johnson, if you can, Mrs. Johnson, if you can unmute, you're recognized. And Matthew, can you send her a request to unmute? It looks like she may be having a hard time unmuting.
I sent her a request to unmute, and her mute symbol went away, so I thought she had unmuted.
Mrs. Johnson, are you able to speak? Okay, she's going to hop on another computer. We did have a neighbor to say that they live across the street, and they can't imagine 3 lots on that space. We also had another neighbor to say that they don't think we need to cram 2 houses on a single lot. So it looks like there's some concerns about this particular development. Did you all want to address some of those concerns?
Sure. I can address that. The lots across the street are actually, the one directly across the street is 0.21 acres, and the one to the south is 0.24 acres. All 3 of these lots will be 0.3 acres, so they'll actually be bigger than the adjacent lots because this is a 1 acre piece of property. If you split 1 acre 3 ways, it's a third, a third, a third. And everything around it are 1/4 acre lots. So it actually is a larger lot than what's surrounding it. As for the 2 units, that's my client's just asking for the same zoning that's surrounding him, which is the R10. I'm not sure if he is married to the 2 units or not, but everybody right now in surrounding can build a 2-family on a house. And I believe he said that, or what he told me was that if he were to build 2, they would be detached homes. They wouldn't be attached homes. So it would be wouldn't be an attached duplex, if that makes a difference to anybody, but that's all I have there.
Okay, thank you so much. We did have one individual that says that they support the rezoning. It looks like this may be one of our District 33 neighbors who says that they are in support of the rezoning. And Ms. Johnson, it looks like she is able to speak now. So if you can unmute, you're recognized.
Thank you, Council Lady Porterfield. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Thank you for joining us.
Good. That's why I have these multiple computers here. This is right behind my house. It actually is in a blind curve. I have grave concerns about the density that is being proposed. I don't think that having a project of this magnitude in a single family development or community, all of our homes are single family homes. They're pretty much on very good sized lots. The lots are from being built older in the older time, what, 70s, 80s. So our homes sit on really nice lots. And that density and that blind curve will cause substantial issues with our ingress and egress out of our community. And so without having a plan also submitted today for us to see, I would be totally opposed to a rezoning. And it will be to the magnitude that I will make sure that every single neighbor around will understand what you're proposing, because this is very impactful to our area. And there are no duplexes or no high density housing anywhere within this vicinity. The new development that is going up across the street that I had approved when I was in council are single family homes on comparable lots as our homes. And this will be out of character with the existing homes and the environment around it. So I just want to strongly state my opposition to this. And thank you, Council Lady Porterfield, for giving me an opportunity to share my concerns and my thoughts.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Johnson. And we did have a few more members to chime in. One neighbor is concerned that there are no plans to review. We have another neighbor who says that they do not support the rezoning, and to suggest 8 houses on 3 lots is concerning, which it sounds like you all may be suggesting now 6 houses on 3 lots, but that is a concern. So at this point, what is being proposed, it doesn't sound like the community is in support. If you all want to, possibly look at some other options, you're more than welcome to come back and present to the community when you have a plan that the community is in support of. But at this point in time, it does not sound like our community is in support. Did you all have any other questions for the community about maybe some things that they would be in support of, so that as you kind of go back to the drawing board, you will know some things that they may be willing to support?
Yes, I did have one brief question, and I appreciate that, and I'll save everybody else's time. If we were to request R10 zoning, which is single family only, and do 4 lots, which would be a 1/4 acre each, 1 acre divided by 4, 1/4 acre each, which would still be larger than the lots immediately adjacent across the street, as well as the lots to the south, would that be something that the community would support? That way you have single family lots that are comparable, if not slightly larger than what's around it. I think that's a pretty good compromise. And as far as the blind curve goes, I can see that, and that would be addressed with Public Works through the plat. And what would probably end up happening, regardless of if it's 4 houses or 6 houses, is a shared drive, and we would have to note site distance. It would probably be right there in the middle where you can get site distance in both directions, and there would be 1 driveway instead of 4, if that makes sense. But I hear what everybody's saying, and completely understand, and I'll talk with my client, but just wanted to get a feel for if 4 lots would be an acceptable plan if we're going back to the drawing board.
Okay, one neighbor said until they see a concrete plan, they still will not be able to support. Another neighbor, we need to see a plan before anything should be proposed to rezone. No plan is acceptable without a plan. So it sounds like, the community is requesting something similar to the previous presenter, where we could actually see, what the mock-ups could potentially look like. And I will just share with you,
Sure.
my preference tends to lean towards SPs over straight rezonings, because with those SPs, the community is able to have more control over what it is that we want to see and what we don't want to see. So in those SPs, we can say that we only want, brick and hardy board, or, we only want certain materials to make sure that that this is just staying in line with the rest of the community and staying in line with the other houses around it. So with that, if you have any other questions, if I get any other feedback, I can definitely share that along with you all.
Sure, and I appreciate everybody's time tonight.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And
Well,
now
have
we're
a good
going to move.
evening.
You as well. Have a good evening. Thank you. And now we're going to move along to Miss McKissick Porter is on the line with us. This is a request to rezone 410 Bell Road from residential to open a beauty salon. Now, this is the parcel, if you are looking at Bell Road and Anderson Road, right there at the corner, there's a home, and then there's the Bell Road Church of the Nazarene. Right next to the Bell Road Church of the Nazarene, there was a daycare there. I believe it was Heart to Heart Daycare, and there was another secondary building beside it. So this proposal is to keep the daycare, which is currently allowed under the zoning, but for that second building to be utilized as a beauty salon. So with that, Ms. Porter, you should be the presenter now. So if you have anything that you would like to present to us, you can go ahead and unmute and begin your presentation.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Yes, my voice is, my sinuses always kind of act up a little bit. But I am actually currently about to open up another daycare there. And, just wanted to be adamant about starting a salon instead of, because I think when it was there, it was like 2 daycare buildings. And, I just would like to bring something different to the community, which is the beauty salon, to add more jobs, and add a different business there, for the community, like I said, to set up for, people that want to come in and maybe possibly have their kids in the daycare and be able to go to the salon all at the same time, So I think it provides a win-win situation, with opening up the beauty salon, because to me it's a good location. It's not like totally out of place from, it's kind of on the corner, and it's other businesses, but they're on Anderson, and that's kind of on Bell going up, toward Bell and then entering into Stewart's Ferry.
Hi, excuse me. What's the address real quick and I can bring it up on a map?
It is 410 and 412 Bell Road.
And Matthew, if you don't mind, will you actually, can you pull it up in 2 ways? Will you pull it up on Parcel Viewer, but also if you could pull it up on Google Maps? I think once the community sees it, they'll have a better idea of which property we're talking about. And Ms. Porter, you can continue talking.
Okay. So what I'm looking to offer in the building is four private salon suites, which would be available to rent for licensed professionals, provide an opportunity for beauty and industry entrepreneurs to provide services without the overhead associated with owning a standalone salon, and also access for the community and surrounding community to support local economy.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Did you have anything else that you wanted to present while he's up? Did you have anything else to share while he's getting this pulled up?
Well, no, that's about it. It's not a lot, because the buildings, they've been there a while, and I've been in the community. It's not my area, but I mean, I'm in the community because my daughter is now 32, so she used to go to the daycare. And, I just want to make a change, because, for years and years and years, I've seen it and it's been looking that way. So, I plan on coming in and making some changes where it just look totally different, put a different color on the buildings, to try to boost up the community and make it look a whole lot better,
Well, thank you so very much. And this on the screen, you will be able to see the property. And Ms. Porter, the building to the right, is that the one that you're proposing leaving a daycare? And is the one to the left the one that you're proposing to be a salon?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I will say, thank you for your desire to, want to make improvements to our community. I definitely would love to see a facelift in that area. I know that parking lot needs to be paved, and there are some things that I know that the property. When we spoke before, I know you said that you were interested in doing a facelift and making the property look better. I will share that previously someone else who wanted to open a daycare reached out to me with a very similar proposal. They wanted to do a daycare just for the sake of the community. Ms. Porter, I know I shared this with you, but for the sake of the community, so that you all will kind of have that background information. I did have someone previously want to purchase this property to open a daycare, and they did want to utilize that second building for to open up a business. And after speaking with planning, there were some concerns, being that this side of Bell Road kind of goes into that residential area. So if you're coming down Bell Road, and if you can imagine that you're at Bell and Murfreesboro Road, and you're at, KFC or Pizza Hut, if you're in that area, those are, the businesses. So the direction that Matthew's heading on the map, those businesses kind of stop at that corner with, there's a daycare at their corner, there's a veterinarian's office, and there's a insurance company, and Anderson Road really serves as that buffer. So on one side of Bell Road, you're looking at, more of the businesses in the commercial area, and then the other side of Bell Road, you're looking at that residential area. And daycares are allowed in residential communities, which is why the daycare would not need a rezoning. But in order to do the business or the salon there, that would need a rezoning. So we just wanted to bring this before the community to see if, if anyone had any thoughts or strong thoughts or feelings about whether they support or were in opposition for this. Again, it has not gone to, none of these proposals have gone to planning yet. I do try to make sure that if I have anything to do with it, I like to bring these proposals to the community before it ever gets to planning, so that we as a community can have some conversations before proposals are submitted. So if anyone has anything, whether that's in favor or in opposition, if anyone wants to share any thoughts about this particular rezoning, I would love to hear it. And I'm scrolling through. I don't see anyone raising their hand, and we don't have anything in the chat. Does anyone have any questions about it? And while I'm waiting to see if anyone types in any questions, Ms. Porter, with this being a beauty salon, I would assume that this would be typical, 9 to 5 type operating hours. I know sometimes at the salon it may go a little bit later, but I'm assuming that this would be typical business hours.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I do not see anyone with their hand raised for any questions, and no one has put anything in the chat. So as always, if you all have any questions, concerns, or suggestions, if you could reach out to me by email or phone or text, I would appreciate to hear any feedback. And Ms. Porter, thank you so much for presenting this information. And I will definitely follow up with you and let you know if we hear any other questions from the community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Delishia Porterfield.
All right, you're so welcome. Thank you. Then
Thank you.
our next presentation that we have, it's an update from our last meeting. And Matthew, if you could make Mr. Jared Gray the presenter. And we are now down to our last two agenda items for today's meeting, everyone. This is a proposal for a public-private partnership at 2804 Smith Springs Road. This is the parcel of land that is located next to Compton's grocery store, and it is located across the street from our Smith Springs Community Center. So giving some history on the particular project, there was a proposal a few years back for apartments at that particular site. The community was not in favor of having apartments at that site, so there was no rezoning that went forward. When I was elected to council, the property owners did reach out about some potential proposals. I did express that based on the information that I had received from the community still was not in favor of placing any apartments there, and they were not in favor of something that would have a very increased density. And this was a site that the city has been looking at for potentially a library expansion. So we do have a library in our community in the library's master plan. So this was a site that we really had our eyes on to have our library in our area. The property owners did come up with a proposal in which they are requesting a rezoning to put homes on the property, and they would like to donate about 2 acres of the property to the city in order to put a library there. So this proposal at our last community meeting, they did present. We did not have any opposition at that point in time. I've spoken with one neighbor who has opposition, and I now have a question for the developer as well from speaking with the planner. So with that, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to present that project again. I think this is something that needs to go before the community more than once. So I wanted to make sure that you all presented this again, and we will. I'll ask the question that I have, and then we'll open it up for any additional questions or feedback. And Mr. Gray, I think you're still muted. Mr. Gray, we can see your screen, but we can't hear you. You're still muted. There you go.
Okay, was finally got it taken care of. Can you guys hear me?
We can, yes, sir.
Fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity to address everyone tonight in regards to our proposal for 2804 Smith Springs Road. This project is located adjacent to the Compton's CB and directly across the street from the Smith Springs Road Community Center. This is an aerial overlay for our proposed development, as well as showing where the actual constructed entrance is. We are lining up with it coming into our property. This proposal calls for a total of 74 single-family units. We would obviously be looking to donate to the city a future library site. This site is roughly 9 acres, 8.97 acres in size. The future library site we are looking to donate would be roughly 2.4 acres of that. We are utilizing the Bellevue Branch library site in discussions with Ken Oliver from Metro Library, and that works well as far as size and type of building that they would be looking to construct here. In regards to the building materials that would be used, obviously we're looking at hardy stone, brick, no vinyl, no short-term rentals or anything like that either. This is a kind of a two-scale blow-up version of what we've got proposed. We have two accesses. This is Smith Springs Road, located, if you can see, to the bottom of our screen. Hopefully you can see the arrow moving on your screen there. These are single family attached, 1 through unit 16. Those are single family attached townhome style, and the rest being single family unattached, just standard single family homes. The roadways that we are calling for are going to be public ways to metro standards, meaning that we will have sidewalks, we will have the grass strips, we will have nice lighting, landscaping, etc. On those, and the types of structures, the character renderings, if you will, that we are looking at. This would be the attached. You can notice the offsets, the mixture of materials, and then the single family residential. This is basically what we've got in mind to utilize for the individual single family homes. In regards to specific price points, we are looking at approximately around 300,000. Size of the single family homes will range from 1,500. The largest footprint that we're showing here is roughly about 2,300 square feet. In regards to a couple of things that we will be looking at here, obviously Smith Springs Road traffic, we anticipate obviously submitting a traffic study. Public Works will look at that and make any recommendations that they have. Obviously, we will have to take those into account and construct them across our project site. Water and sewer, we know that we've got availability there, but that will be looked at as well. Detention and water quality, that is required by Metro, and we are not allowed, obviously, to let any more flow off of our site. Post-development is what we have pre-developed. So you can see that we have a large water quality and detention area shown on our site. Again, our intent is to, because we have not made a submittal to the planning department formally, we would like to go ahead and do that. And that way we can begin the process of the planning department giving us feedback, giving us comments, and begin that process. So with that, I will take any questions, and I appreciate everyone's feedback and time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gray. So I'll start off with the concern that was brought to me, and it looks like some people in the chat are kind of having a conversation here, and it's surrounded around that same concern, and that is the density of the project. I did have an opportunity to speak with a planner just to get some feedback about the particular project, and one of the concerns was the density of the project, and concerns that it may not match, that this is more of for an urban area, the density, and that it may not match the surrounding area of the community. And that is what I'm seeing here in the chat. So I'll just kind of review what the community is saying here, and if you would like to address that, and then we'll open it up for any questions. Seems like a lot for that piece of land, does it not? Home seems pretty close together, even the unattached ones. This is too dense for the property. We took homes off Smith Springs. We took townhomes off Smith Springs with Metro buying the property for the community center. The library will be swallowed out with this type of arrangement. Would it be better to cut the number of homes in half and eliminate the townhomes and put more square footage unattached instead? That was one recommendation. And then there was a question about traffic on Smith Springs being worse. Adding to traffic on Smith Springs Road. So if you can, maybe address some of those density questions, and then we'll open it up to see if anyone else in the community would like to add anything.
Sure. Let me start off with a discussion regarding the traffic and transportation. Obviously, from a standpoint of trip generation, our trip generation based upon a residential use is going to be much less than that, which would be created by a retail development that is the approved PUD for this particular development. And that is something that we would not anticipate our development changing what's called the level of service. However, we would model our development in detail, and that would include trip generation numbers as well as traffic counts along Smith Springs Road, to not just guess at that, but to actually have a mathematical model to show what effect it will have. And those are all things that, would be done whenever we submit the planning at the initial stages of this review. And so basically, Metro Public Works would take a look at all of those numbers. They would concur, and then they would make their recommendations for improvements. If in fact we have a detrimental effect on Smith Springs Road and the vehicular level of service, then obviously they would come out against and wouldn't support the project if we can't remediate that somehow. So that's something that we would definitely do. In regards to the urban type design for this particular development, you are correct in that it does feel urban in the way that we have this specifically laid out. A couple things that I want to mention is that if you notice the first project that was presented tonight, you can see that they had their structures, which is very much an urban feel as well, right up against the road. We do not show that. If your garages look anything like mine, then a lot of people park outside of their garages because their garages become storage areas. We have accommodated that in this particular design. That's not so much urban because we do have, long enough driveways that you can get two vehicles pulled in. Regarding the size of the structures and the number of units, one of the things that planning will be looking at is, this being an SP especially, they're going to look at the HPR and they're going to look at what's called formal open space and common open space. And that very well could be something that we look at to eliminate some of these units so that we get planning, agreeable that yes, you're providing enough common and formal open spaces here so that it is a walkable community. Again, from a standpoint of the number of units and what we're looking to do here with an HPR, that's what we've got to propose for you, but it's something that we obviously will be looking at as we move forward with the project. And to get that to that next step, that's something that we'll definitely take into consideration, meet with planning, and if we need to eliminate some of the units, we'll do so.
All right, thank you. Thank you so very much for sharing that rationale. And also thank you for letting the community know that you all are willing to go down on the density once you meet with planning and get that feedback from planning. So as a recap, as it stands, they are willing to go down on the number of units if planning deems that this is something that needs to be done. I know for me, it is important that we are creating communities with sidewalks and that we are having walkable communities. So I do like the it's important for me that we get the library on this particular site. And I know that there are a few different ways that that can happen. That can happen with, if Metro were to buy the parcel of land and build the library there, that is one option. The other option is, like in this case, if the land is donated, then that will help the community to get that. So I do appreciate you all for being willing to donate it, but we do want to make sure that we have something that the community can support and something that the community is comfortable with. So with that, I just say thank you for being willing to look into reducing the number of units. Do we have any other comments or questions for members of the community? I did read through, I did share out everything that was listed, the concerns that were listed in the chat, but do we have anyone else that would like to ask a question or raise a concern, whether that's in support or opposition? If anyone wants to share out anything. And going through the chat, I don't see anything else. I don't see anyone else's hands that are listed. So Mr. Gray, I will follow up with you all. If I get any additional questions or concerns, I will make sure to follow up with you all to address those. So thank you so much for presenting. Oh, one thing that I did, could you go back to the layout? One thing that I did want to share, yes, if you can go right here. There was a question about the townhomes on Smith Springs Road, and my understanding was the rationale for those townhomes being aligned along Smith Springs Road was for the more so of the privacy of the community, to kind of add a buffer, so to speak, so that you couldn't necessarily see into the community. So Mr. Gray,
Correct. And another thing that we discussed with planning, and we will get obviously more in depth in that with our SP submittal, is specifically making sure that those buildings, obviously in the frontage along Smith Springs, that view is preserved. So you're not just looking at the back of a building, but more or less a double-faced type structure.
We did have one question before we move on to the next one. At the bottom right where it says mail, would that be for all of the units or just the townhomes?
No, that would be for all of the units due to the United States Postal Service regulations. That is not our choice, but that is the requirement for USPS for not only this development, but all new developments. They want a centralized location so that they're not having to put as many miles on their vehicles.
Thank you. And then I'll just share out two more things that we saw in the chat before we move on to the last piece here. The library is drowned out. I am a no for this proposal. Townhomes as a buffer is not something that's generally done. So I just wanted to share those out to make sure that we're reading everything. I know some people are participating by phone, so that they can also hear what some of the neighbors have typed in the chat. So with that, Mr. Gray, thank you so much for sharing out, and we will be moving on to our next presentation, unless you had anything else that you wanted to share to close out.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you. And then the last thing that we have, Matthew, are you able to pull up 2760 Murfreesboro Road? The last presentation, it's not so much as a presentation as much as it's me sharing information with you all. This is for the villages at Forest View.
What was that address again? I'm sorry.
2760 Murfreesboro Road.
Okay, now, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm actually choking, so thank you. Do we have, I don't believe that we do, but I did want to ask, do we have any representative from this project on the call? Okay, I didn't believe that we did. This is for the villages at Forest View. I did speak with the owner of this particular property. I did invite them to our community meetings, and the owner did decline that invitation. This is for property that was already zoned, so this is not anything that required a rezoning. So this is a developer who is building by right. So if you've seen, if you follow me on social media, if you watch the council meetings, if you get my newsletter, you know where I stand on increasing density in our community. And I've been very vocal about concerns about if we have the infrastructure to increase density. I've shared my concerns about MMPS being our schools out here being either at capacity or close to capacity. There have been traffic concerns or concerns with police response time. So I have not been in support of any projects that are increasing the density. I've not been in support, even in some of our surrounding districts, when some of my colleagues are looking at apartments and things of that nature. I don't see us having the capacity to support that at this point in time. So I've been very vocal about that. So I wanted to make sure I know there are some people on the call that had not been to some of our previous council meetings. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of my stance on that. This particular developer is building by right. So again, this is not something that has to go before the council. This is not something that the council member has any way of intervening on. This is a project that I've spoken with the planning department as well as our council attorney to see if the community had any options in the event that the community was in opposition. But because the developer was not requested and he's building what he could legally build based on the 1995 zoning, we're not able to really do anything with this particular development. But the developer has stated, and again, this is coming directly from the developer, he stated that he is building 307 market rate units on this particular parcel. If you look at the map, the parcel that we're speaking about is outlined in pink. That little square, Matthew, can you point to the little square right in front of the pink? That is CVS, and directly across the street is the fire station. So if you notice behind CVS, you'll see a lot of rocks in that area. You see those rocks that are being moved. That is grading for this particular project. So again, it's 307 market rate units. There will be a total of 222 units that are 1 or 2 bedroom apartments with 58 townhome 58 townhome rentals fronting Murfreesboro Road. So that small strip that's going along Murfreesboro Road, that strip would have the 58 townhomes. And then there will be a total of 27 efficiencies. The complex will have a dog park, a clubhouse, and a pool. These will be for the residents only and not for the community at large. Now, this property is a part of the Murfreesboro Pike Urban Design Overlay. So the planning department did have to do an administrative review to make sure that the final site plan met the design standards. So what the overlay does, it doesn't control the use, but it does make sure that the plan meets the appropriate setbacks, the height restrictions, the building orientation, the landscaping, and the materials. So this project, that plan had to be approved by Fire, Public Works, Metro Water. It does require a traffic study. The plan currently includes 491 parking spots, 50 bicycle spaces, and sidewalks. The buildings will be a combination of brick and hardy board, and the developer did send pictures of the particular layout. Matthew, do you have those pictures? Are you able to pull those up?
Did you email those to me? I apologize.
Yeah, it's the same ones that I sent from last time, but I could resend them again. Let me shoot them back over to you.
Oh.
And as we're getting these pulled up, if there are any questions that Matthew or I can answer, we will do our best to answer them. But we are limited in the information that we have because, again, this is something that the developer is building by right. So this is not, that we offered to, have them to come out and speak to the community, but it's not something that they were interested in doing. And they stated that the reason was because this is something that is basically like these services are not services for the community. So, for example, I said maybe the community would want a playground instead of a dog park or something of that nature. But because these are services strictly for that apartment complex and not for the community, the developer did not feel the need to come out and speak to the community, quite frankly. So any questions that we have now, they did say that they would be willing to answer questions. So any questions that you all have, we could definitely send those over. And I'm going to go into the chat and I'll recognize what we see here in the chat. And then we'll also go answer if anyone has any questions that they want to ask. So here's a comment. As a reminder, why zoning is so important and can impact the area for years to come. Yes, and I totally agree with that. And I've mentioned at previous community meetings, whenever a rezoning proposal comes forward, I always think about not only how this is going to impact our community today, but I also think through 20 and 50 years from now, what this particular site could look like. That's also why I lean towards SPs over straight rezoning. With a straight rezoning, you can build anything that is allowed with that particular rezoning. When we do an SP, you have to build to that site-specific plan. And if someone wants to build something differently, then they will have to come back with another site proposal, which means it will come before the community again. So that's why I lean towards those SPs over straight rezonings. Are any of the units lot tech units? The developer said that they are not. So the question was asked about is the developer receiving any type of incentives or credits for the housing to support families with low income. The developer has stated that he is not receiving any type of credits and that all units will be market rate units. And I'm going through here. If anyone has any questions or would like to unmute, you can feel free to raise your hand and we can address you. Or if you have any additional questions, we can you can ask it in the chat. And again, this particular development, this has been shared out in the newsletter a few times, and this is, I think this is the second or third time that we've addressed this in a community meeting. But it's really important to me to make sure that everyone gets that information because I know, sometimes people will miss something in the newsletter or they may miss something on social media or that may not be able to attend that community meeting. So that's why I wanted to bring this before the community multiple times so that all are aware of what's happening. I never want anyone to feel blindsided or feel like they didn't know what was happening in the community. So it's really important to me that I share that information with you all when it becomes available. And with that, we do not see any other hands in the queue or no additional questions. So I want to thank you all for coming out today. We do have another meeting scheduled for the end of the month, but there is a schedule conflict. So we are working on a new date for our meeting at the end of the month. So I know I've sent out a save the date last month, and I've sent it out this month, and even a reminder again today about the meeting for the end of the month. But we do have a schedule conflict, so we will be sending out within the next day or two a new date to let you all know the date of our next community meeting to discuss any other questions that you all may have. So with that, thank you so much for attending today. And I did receive a thank you for having this meeting, Councilwoman. Thank you all so much for attending. I appreciate it. And again, this will be shared out through social media and through the newsletter. So if any of your neighbors did not attend, or if they have any questions, please feel free to share this with them and share the information that you've learned. If you're not receiving my newsletter, if you could send me an email, I'll put my email address in the chat. If you send it to either my Nashville.gov email address, which is Delishia.Porterfield@Nashville.gov, or you can email Delishia for District 29 at gmail.com. You'll actually get a bounce back message that will give you a link to sign up for the newsletter. You can also text me your email address, or you can go to my Facebook page. There is a sign up link on my Facebook page that will allow you to sign up for the newsletter. That Facebook page is facebook.com/Delishia4D29, and I'll put that in the chat as well. So with that, thank you all so much. And again, thank you to Miss Rosie and to Matthew from the council office for staying on with us. And also thank you to Lindsay from the library. Thank you for being on with us and being available to answer any questions. So and thank you to Ms. Hodge from the trustee's office, and thank you for our properties, our register of deeds, former Councilwoman Karen Johnson. Thank you for being on the call as well. So with that, you all have a good evening.